Hi, everybody. It is almost the end of October, which means we are nearing one of my favorite holidays of the year, Halloween. And that means it's also time for my annual public service announcement about Halloween costumes. Now, every year in the news, we see something like this, which was taken from a Twitter post in 2018. An example of teachers or young people or old people dressing up in ways that are inappropriate and offensive to other people. So before you choose your Halloween costume this year, I want to urge you to be thoughtful and critical in what you are choosing to wear and how you are choosing to wear it, even if there is not malicious intent, as this Twitter post stated. It's still harmful when certain people's cultural traditions are appropriated as costumes, or when people are represented in racist or stereotypical caricatures. So a few things to keep in mind as you are getting ready for this very exciting time of the year. First, think about appropriation versus appreciation. When you appropriate someone's culture in your costume, that's when you are doing it in a way that could be offensive, when you're taking, and it's not in a way that's showing any sort of appreciation of the culture. And so a good rule of thumb here is to ask yourself, if I were to run into somebody from this cultural background, so if I'm dressing like a Mexican in this stereotypical way, as in the picture, if I'm dressing like an indigenous person, if I'm dressing like a Hawaiian, if I were to run into somebody from that group, from that background, who identifies as such, would they find this costume offensive? If the answer is yes, it's probably a case of appropriation, not appreciation. Another important thing to keep in mind is that blackface is never okay. Blackface is when a white person paints their face a dark color, paints their face black, paints their face brown, which again, some will argue if there's no malicious intent, you're trying to fit with your costume. And yet there's a long, long history of blackface being a racist and discriminatory practice, dating back to minstrel shows in this country. And so if you don't know the history of blackface, I encourage you to Google, read about it, find out why it's a practice that's not okay. At that time, white actors would paint their faces black and then would enact very racist caricatures of Black people in this country. And so doesn't matter what your costume is, even if you are paying tribute to a person of color, please don't paint your face black or brown. All right. And finally, avoid stereotypes and Disneyfied portrayals of certain groups of people. So while you may have Disney movies that you love, like Pocahontas, we again go back to that point about appropriation versus appreciation. Many Disneyfied caricatures of certain groups of people are very offensive and are not representative of how that group would choose to be represented, and oftentimes it's not appropriate for somebody who's not from that background to be dressing in that way. So again, think about, is this portrayal stereotypical? Could this be offensive to the group that I'm representing if I were to come into contact with somebody from that background? All right, so that is my PSA. And as a final note, you're always safe dressing as storybook characters. This was my costume with my family last year, the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf. So I highly recommend you lean into literary representations. Can't go wrong there, as long as you keep the rules on the prior slide in mind. And I hope you have a great time celebrating this wonderful time of year, getting into the spirit of the season in a very respectful and thoughtful way. All right, that's all for now.